Ever since the Warriors made the decision to trade for Jimmy Butler, they've looked like a completely different team. Coming into the trade deadline, they held a record of 25-25, exactly 500, were 19th in the league in offense, 10th in defense, 28th in free throw attempts, and dead last in free throw percentage. However, in their last 5 games, which is how long Jimmy has been with the team, Golden State now has a record of 4-1. They have the 6th best offense, 7th best defense, and importantly, are 9th in free throw attempts and 2nd in free throw percentage. This likely won't be the move that puts them in serious contention against teams like OKC, but it already looks like shades of some Warriors teams of the past, who were able to pick apart nearly every type of defense thrown at them. Jimmy has been a key piece for Golden State as a player that teams have to pay a lot of attention to, especially inside the three-point line. And this has been instrumental in taking a lot of pressure off of Stephen Curry in most circumstances. Some of the ways where he's making his impact felt are through his screen setting, his connective passing, his foul drawing, his scoring ability, and just his overall basketball IQ. When it comes to his screen setting, he's been really important, especially in actions involving Steph, as the Warriors now have a roller that is able to command a lot more attention than what they had before. Even though he's only been here for 5 games, we've already seen the difference in the level of attention that Jimmy is getting coming off of these short rolls compared to someone like Draymond Green or GP2 earlier in the year. In this play in their game against Milwaukee, it's a simple pick and roll involving Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler. Jimmy slips the screen before Taurean Prince actually makes contact, which leaves Stephen Curry facing 2 defenders, which is something that Golden State sees a lot of. And now, because Jimmy Butler is such a huge scoring threat inside the three-point line, this commands the attention of the other 3 defenders on the floor in Damian Lillard, Kevin Porter Jr., and Bobby Portis. And so 2 players on the floor are occupying the attention of all 5 defenders. He gives a head fake, waits for the defense to commit to matchups, and makes a read based on that. Adding a player like Jimmy Butler to this team is really important for what he provides, but it's even more important when you consider the fact that there really hasn't been a noticeable adjustment period for him. It seems like he's just fitting right in. For example, teams have been top locking him a lot in just these 5 games, which is something that Golden State has been dealing with over the last decade with Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson as they prepare to come off of their screens, and Golden State would counter this by lobbing a well-placed pass to them for an easy layup. Jimmy Butler has been no different, and in fact, a lot of his paint touches and shots that he's been getting at the rim with Golden State have been a result of teams top locking him, and then him getting a pass from either Draymond or someone else for a shot at the rim. His scoring ability has taken a lot of pressure off of Stephen Curry, but it also has taken a lot of overall pressure off of Draymond Green, which he has now noted after several games since the trade. While Jimmy Butler likely won't be a point of attack defender for this team, putting another high IQ player on both ends next to Draymond has really opened up the possibilities of what this team can actually do, because now they have 2 really high IQ players both on offense and defense that can make split-second reads in any given situation. Jimmy has proven to be a solid playmaker in his short time with Golden State. Some plays coming off of those short rolls, which we talked about, but others where he is just the primary ball handler, where he's simply either just making a read on the defense during an off-ball action, or is attempting to get downhill and drawing defenders to him and making a read based on that. So far in Golden State, Jimmy Butler is averaging nearly 6 assists a game, and because of him, the Warriors' offense just overall looks so much more cohesive and viable, especially with Steph either off the floor or off the ball after teams have trapped him. In order to really show the difference in what this team is doing and what they're able to do after the Jimmy Butler trade, we're going to take a look at 2 separate games. The first game from January 22nd, the Warriors faced off against the Sacramento Kings, a game in which they blew an 18-point lead and lost a close game down the stretch, and their most recent game against the Sacramento Kings, in which they won in a blowout. In the first half of this game, Stephen Curry had 12 points, but at halftime, the Kings seemed like they made an emphasis to do whatever they could to get the ball out of Steph's hands and force the others to play make and live with the results. This first play is a pick and roll with Steph and Gary Payton, which the Kings trap to force the ball out of his hands, and you can see even though GP2 is now rolling at this point, there really is no rotation from the defense. It's just Malik Monk, single coverage at the rim, trying to get a decent contest up, which Gary Payton ends up missing. The Kings started zoning up on Steph too. A little bit later in the quarter, we see Steph with Keegan Murray as his primary matchup and De'Aaron Fox shading over off of Andrew Wiggins. Steph whips a quick pass into the middle for TJD, and all of a sudden, the entire possession just seems like it's shut down at that point. A little bit later, sort of the same thing. De'Aaron Fox is now his primary matchup with Malik Monk shading over. Gary goes to the middle of the zone now, and they are able to generate a somewhat good look for Buddy Hield, but it's still not an ideal shot. The Kings started really hard trapping him off of these pick and rolls, and especially when he was coming across half court. Here's a pick and roll with Trace Jackson Davis again, where Steph gets the ball to Gary Payton on the wing, to which he would then probably skip past to TJD rolling, and TJD would make a read based on that. Malik Monk probably would have rotated over, but instead it's a really bad pass by Gary Payton, and it's a turnover. And you can see this is really just their entire game plan. It's just forcing the ball out of Steph's hands by any means necessary, and forcing anybody else to beat them. And overall, it was just a really rough watch. Fast forward to their next matchup against the Kings, to where the Kings now have Zach LaVine instead of De'Aaron Fox, and the Golden State Warriors now have Jimmy Butler. Right off of tip-off, we can see Steph and Jimmy Butler instantly getting into an off-ball action, where Steph gets the ball to Draymond in the post, which it looks like Golden State is about to set up for their split action. Instead, it's just an off-ball for Steph, as he drives down the middle and occupies the attention of DeMar DeRozan. Jimmy Butler, with his high IQ, uses that attention that Steph is drawing to then relocate, as Steph sets a pick for him to screen DeMar, as Malik Monk is not leaving Steph under any circumstances, and that's an open look for Jimmy Butler. He just can't make it. A little bit later in the game, Jimmy Butler is now posting up Malik Monk, and because this is a mismatch, this draws a lot of defensive attention. There are 4 Kings inside the paint right now, and Jimmy is able to make the right read based on that. The Kings are back in their zone again. This time Steph is off the floor, but you can still see the impact of Jimmy Butler and just the overall attention that he draws. Jimmy Butler comes to the elbow, catches the ball, he instantly draws 2 defenders. He gets it back to Guy Santos, who kicks it over to Buddy Hield, and Guy tries to get it back into Jimmy Butler. That freezes the Kings defense for just a split second, as Jimmy Butler standing at the foul line is an absolute threat. And so that little split second attention that he drew gave Buddy Hield enough time for a 3-pointer, which he makes. Draymond is at the 5, and we've seen Golden State doing this a lot recently. Draymond and Jimmy will set off-ball actions for each other in attempts to go at the mismatches when the teams do end up switching. So Draymond sets a screen for Jimmy Butler. That means that Jonas now has to cover Jimmy, and having Jimmy Butler just in the middle of the zone is so key, simply because this is his scoring range. And so Draymond lobs a pass into Jimmy. Defense collapses to him, and he makes a touch pass to Brandon Podziemski, who just misses the 3. But even though a lot of these have been misses so far, you can see just the difference in the quality of looks that they are actually generating compared to before. This next play is again what I was talking about earlier, with teams top blocking Jimmy. They just lob a pass over the top. Off ball screen for Jimmy. Keon Ellis is now top blocking him. He is completely out of position, and Keon is forced to foul him. Jimmy Butler, Draymond pick and roll again. This is just to get Draymond posted up. B-Pod's off ball action for Jimmy Butler, and this play is just using the Kings switching against them. DeMar looks like he's about to switch onto Pods, and Keon Ellis is about to take Jimmy Butler, but as we mentioned earlier, or as we saw earlier, that's not really something that they want. So Keon tells DeMar to switch back, and as soon as Jimmy sees this, he cuts back door and is able to get a shot at the rim off of that. This is another display of Jimmy Butler's IQ. Pick and roll Brandon Podziemski and Draymond Green. They're trying to get a Steph handoff here. Keegan does a really good job of denying that, so they then turn to a Buddy Hield DHO. Buddy Hield attacks downhill. This occupies the attention of Domantas Sabonis, and now Malik Monk is on him too. At the same time, Steph is relocating to the weak side, and this leaves Jake LaRavia in a difficult spot. He's left guarding Draymond Green and Brandon Podziemski out top. Now, seeing this and seeing what's about to happen, Jimmy repositions himself in the paint. They get the ball back to Draymond, which occupies the attention of Jake LaRavia, and now there's nobody left to cover this cut because Domas is still with Buddy Hield. Jimmy Butler is taking up space here, and Keegan Murray is not leaving Steph under any circumstances. Oh, wow, a lot of moving parts on that play. A little bit later in the game, again with Steph off the floor, we see Jimmy Butler running a 2-man game with Kevon Looney. He rejects the screen that gets Zach LaVine out of position, although he does recover really well, and that is just a tough drop-off pass to Kevon, and that's really something that the Warriors have not had outside of Stephen Curry this season, which is crazy to say, but it's just the reality. Again, Jimmy Butler is not the end all be all, but he fills up and covers up a lot of holes that this Warriors roster had just 1 month ago. Personally, I was somewhat concerned with the Jimmy Butler acquisition because of the contract and the lack of three-point shooting, but everything else has been fantastic. And as I said before, how seamlessly he's fit in with this team already. Keep in mind, he's only played 5 games with them, and he's only been with the team for 3 weeks. He's generating free throws that no Warrior in the Steph era has ever done, shooting 9.5 free throws per game with the team and shooting 87% on those free throws. He's provided multiple new dimensions to this team on both ends of the floor, and even though he may be seen as an overpay, I think it's pretty safe to say that the Warriors are absolutely a team to look at in these last couple months of the season. Keep in mind, they have an easy schedule. They played a lot of their tougher games in November and December, and so do not be surprised if this team makes a late season push up the standings. But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you're new, hit the bell to be notified when I upload, comment down below what you want to see next, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.